Jan, so far Apex Company officials are refusing to talk about the explosion, and they're also refusing to allow us into the area where it occurred. When we tried to talk to plant manager Joe Devano, this is what happened.
You have no right to be here. You're trespassing.
Are you the plant manager, Mr.
I have no comment. I don't want to have to tell you again. It's Apex Company property and you're trespassing.
But Mr. Devano, we need to ask you about the
I'm telling you for the last time, you're on company property. I want you to get the hell out of here now.
We have learned from a company employee that the boiler that exploded was old and perhaps not in good repair. And to add a peculiar twist to the mystery, when we asked employee Virgil Hale, he said that upon hearing the explosion, his first thought was that it might have been a bomb.
Well, it sounded like a bomb. In fact, the first thing I thought about was a bomb exploding. We'd had a bomb threat here not long ago, and that's the first thing that popped into my mind. I've never been so scared in all my life.
And still another question involves an outside contractor whose crew worked on that particular boiler 2 days ago. Hale says that a member of that crew was thrown off the site for having liquor in his possession. The two victims remain in undetermined condition at County Memorial Hospital. Hale did give us their names, but apparently their families have not yet been notified, so we are withholding that information. Important questions still remain. Why did Apex allow a deteriorating boiler to stay in operation? What or who caused it to explode? And perhaps most importantly, why did the Apex Company officials want so desperately to keep the public from knowing what's going on behind these fences? John Crockett, KSTM News.
I guess the worst thing to happen in the last 5 years was a boiler explosion in number 3. The second worst thing is what happened when the news reporters showed up to ask us about it.
When we watched TV that night, I could have crawled into a hole. The things I was saying sounded so awful. Nothing like that's ever happened to us before, so we just didn't know how to handle it.
No matter how much you know about the business you're in, you can get into serious trouble during an emergency if you don't deal with the news media properly. What you say or don't say to the news media can have a tremendous impact on your company's reputation in the community. In this program, we'll demonstrate typical mistakes drawn from actual experiences of various companies. We'll also demonstrate the right way, the low-risk way, to work with the news media during an emergency. If your company already has a public relations or media policy, so much the better, because the ideas we'll be talking about in the next few minutes will fit in very well with almost any existing system. The secret to dealing successfully with the media in an emergency is to know what to say, what not to say, and how to gracefully exit an interview when you decide to. And the first step is to realize that no matter what anybody says, an interview is not a battle between you and a reporter. Instead, it's an opportunity for you to convey certain specific information to your community, information they want and need. Belligerent reporters do exist, but your chances of running into one are exceedingly remote. Not long ago, Joe Devano was feeling pretty good about his safety record at Apex. 26 months without a lost time accident. Then one day a boiler ruptured at the plant and 2 men were hurt. Reporters showed up in no time. Since they continually monitor emergency frequencies, they heard the ambulance call to Apex.
Base Unit 6.
Unit 6 here.
John, did you catch that call just now about some people hurt over at Apex?
Yeah, I just caught it. We're about 4 miles from the plant right now. You want us on it?
10-4, go.
Let's do it. Right up here, double back, and we'll get back to Apex. Come on, let's get it. You were inside when this happened, sir?
Yes, I was over working in my
Could you tell us
station.
your name first, please?
Oh, I'm Virgil Hale. I'm a plant operator.
Could you stand over just a little bit to your left?
How's this?
That's good. Go ahead,
That's
please.
fine, sir.
I was working at my station about 300 feet from the unit when all of a sudden I heard this tremendous boom. I looked out and people were running and yelling and...
Could you describe the blast for us, please?
Well, it sounded like a bomb. In fact, the first thing I thought of was maybe a bomb had gone off. We had a bomb threat here not long ago, and that's the first thing that popped into my mind. I've never been so scared in all my life.
Could you tell us who was hurt?
Well, they say one of our maintenance men, George Salry, and a young fella named Paul Smith. If it was Paul, he's only been here about a week, That poor guy?
Well, do you know how badly they were hurt?
Oh, I've heard they've been hurt pretty bad. In fact, Sylvia Meese from accounting, she's had CPR. She said that Paul was scalded around the eyes so bad that he might go blind. That poor guy.
Do you have any idea what might have caused the explosion?
Well, I don't know. They've been working on that old boiler for some time now, trying to keep it up. The workmen are always talking about how old it is. Two days ago, an outside contractor was working on it, and now that I think about it, one of their crew was barred from the plant because he found a bottle of whiskey in his truck. I sure hope that didn't have anything to do with it.
Has that ever happened
Excuse
before?
me? Pardon me,
who is this?
I'm Joe Devano. I'm the
Well,
plant manager of this
Mr. Devano, we'd like to ask you some questions.
You have no right to be here. You're
Are you the
trespassing.
plant manager, Mr.
I have no
Devano?
comment. I don't want to have to tell you again.
Any
It's
idea
Apex
what
Company
caused?
property and you're trespassing.
But Mr. Devano, we need to ask you about the
I'm
injury.
telling you for the last time, you're on company property. I want you to
Just
get the
trying
hell
to
out of
get
here
the
now.
answer.
Everything's hit? All right. Jan, so far Apex Company officials are refusing to talk about the explosion, and they're also refusing to allow us into the area where it occurred. When we tried to talk to plant manager Joe Devano, this is what happened.
You have no right to be here. You're
Are you the
Are you the
trespassing.
plant manager, Mr.
I have no
Devano?
comment. I don't
We
want
need
to have to
ask
tell you
about
again.
the
It's
injury.
Apex Company
Just-
property and you're trespassing.
But Mr. Devano, we need to ask you about the
I'm
injury.
telling you for the last time, you're on
We could
company
just-
property. I want you to
just
get the
trying
hell out of
get
here
the
now.
answer.
Well, the only thing Devano desperately wanted to do was keep everyone out of the way so he could handle his emergency. He never dreamed he'd come out looking so bad. Virgil went in the next day and offered to quit, but it wasn't his fault. Apex simply did everything wrong, and they learned some important lessons the hard way. Let's take another look and stop along the way to see what we can learn from this. Reporters will interview anybody who might have seen or heard the accident. That's why they headed straight for Virgil, especially when one reporter saw another talking to him.
You were inside when this happened, sir?
Yes, I was over working
Could
at
you
my
tell us
station.
your name first, please?
Oh, I'm Virgil Hale. I'm a plant operator.
Now, regardless of the employee's position in the company, his comments will be regarded as official statements from Apex. For this reason, among others, each shift should have only one designated emergency spokesperson, with a backup in case that person is out of pocket. In an emergency, all requests for interviews must be funneled to the designated spokesperson. In this case, unfortunately, Virgil wouldn't have known how to decline the interview even if he'd wanted to. We'll have more to say about that later. Notice right here the reporter moving Hale into a certain position. The reporter and camera person are trying to frame the shot in a visually interesting way, and that nearly always means putting a burning building or the wreckage or whatever behind the person being interviewed.
No comment. I don't
We
want
need
to
to
have to
ask
tell
you
you
about
again.
the
It's
injury.
Apex
What
Company
caused?
property and you're trespassing.
But Mr. Devano, we need to ask you about the injury.
I'm telling you for the last time, you're on
we could
company
just-
property. I want you to
just
get the
trying
hell
to
out
get
of
the
here.
This kind of thing really happens, and not because company people hate the media either. It happens because management hasn't worked out a media plan and is preoccupied with all the other details that need their attention during the emergency. Devano's big mistake was in not having a simple, brief statement prepared concerning the accident. He should have known reporters would be there. If he says, "Nothing has happened here, there's nothing to see," his company's credibility takes a nosedive. Never lie to the media. You'll simply look foolish when your lie is discovered. Technically, Devano was right when he pointed out that the reporters were on Apex Company property, and he had a legal right to order them to leave. But you can see that it gives the appearance that Apex is hiding something, when that wasn't the case at all. You simply can't push the media away, so it's better not even to try. Even if you order reporters off your property, they can still keep everything they filmed going in and everything they filmed going out, including your outburst, and that alone would be enough for a provocative news story. Which brings us to Devano's major mistake. He lost his composure. Devano's outburst may be the only impression the public ever gets of the Apex Company. We've covered a lot of ground here, so let's put it all together and see how the same situation might have played out if Apex had had a plan. How would things have turned out if Virgil Hale had known how to avoid an interview and Devano had known how to handle one?
Over here by the gate, we can get him.
You were inside when this happened, sir?
Yes, I'm a plant operator, but I think you need to talk to Joe Devano, our plant manager. He's right over there. Joe!
Can you tell us what happened?
I'm really not the one you should talk to. Let me get
Maybe you
Joe.
can
Joe,
answer a
come
few
here, please.
questions.
Hello, I'm Joe Devano,
Mr.
the plant
Devano,
manager.
do you have
Mr.
any
Devano,
idea
do you have
what may have
questions?
caused
About
this?
the
First,
injuries?
let me tell you what we know right now. A boiler in our number 3 unit ruptured this morning, about an hour ago, and 2 of our employees were injured. They've been taken to County Memorial Hospital. Both men were talking as they were taken away, but we don't have an exact report on their injuries yet. The names will be released by the hospital as soon as their families have been notified. The number 3 unit is where we generate steam for some of our processes. The unit has been shut down. There's no danger now, but the area is closed off so we can investigate and find out exactly why the accident happened. I've got to get back there right now. I'm sure you can understand things are a little hectic just now. Please stay if you like. I'll have my secretary get some coffee for you. There are telephones you can use. I appreciate your patience, and I'll try to get back here and talk to you again in about 20 minutes.
Mr. Devano, do you know what could have caused this?
No, but we're investigating, and we'll find out. Now, if you'll please excuse me, I better get back to work.
How long
Mr.
do you
Devano,
think
are
this
there any more?
investigation's going to
Has there ever
take,
been
sir?
anything like this that has occurred before, sir?
Mr. Devano.
Jan, the loud explosion that shook the Apex plant this morning was caused by a ruptured boiler in the plant's number 3 unit. 2 people were hurt, and they're on their way to County Memorial Hospital at this time. I'm standing now with Mr. Joe Devano, the plant manager. Mr. Devano, do you have any idea what caused that boiler to rupture?
It's really too early to tell. We have an investigating team on it right now.
Has anything like this ever occurred before?
As a matter of fact, this plant had gone 26 months without a lost time accident. You can imagine we hate to see something like this happen, especially because of our 2 guys who were hurt. I'm going to run over to the hospital and see them as soon as I can break free here.
What condition was the boiler in before the accident?
We've got a regular inspection schedule for all our equipment, and the boiler is checked pretty closely. From everything we can tell so far, it tested fine every time. That's why we're anxious to find out exactly what happened.
Can you offer a guess as to what might have occurred?
No, I wouldn't want to speculate.
Well, judging from the amount of damage done, what would have happened if the full crew had been working near the boiler when it ruptured?
That's a hypothetical situation, and I really couldn't speculate.
Any estimate on the financial damage that was done?
Not really, no. What we're most concerned with is the 2 guys who were hurt and getting them back on their feet soon.
Jan, that's the situation here. Back to you and Ted.
Well, that story presents a much more favorable view of Apex, and the only difference was in the way Apex handled themselves. They were helpful, but Devano stayed out of trouble by sticking to the facts related to what was happening then and there. Let's take a closer look at that interview.
You were inside when this happened, sir?
Yes, I'm a plant operator, but I think you need to talk to Joe Devano, our plant manager. He's right over there.
Let's say that Apex had decided to keep their media contact to an absolute minimum. The only way this will work is if Devano can convince the reporters that he's not hiding anything and isn't afraid of them. He's got to be helpful, at least to some extent, and give a solid reason for not doing the interview. Let's see how it works.
Mr. Devano, do you have any idea what may have caused the accident?
Sorry, folks. We can't comment on this right now because we just don't have enough information yet. You need to direct your questions to the sheriff's department. That's him right over there. I'm sorry, but our company policy prohibits interviews. You can also call our head office. Here's their number. Now, in the meantime, I'm really sorry, but I've got to ask you to please remain outside the plant gate. This is a restricted area, and our safety regulations don't allow non-employees onto the plant site. I appreciate your understanding. Now, I've got to get back to work. Please hold your questions, and the sheriff's department will help you.
Sir, can you tell us anything?
You can use a similar approach when you first arrive at the scene of an incident, in order to buy a little time. Simply point out to the reporters that you don't have any facts yet, but that you'll be glad to return in 10 minutes or so to tell them what you can. This gives you time to collect your thoughts and assemble the information you need. It's a good technique for buying some time, but remember, if you say you'll be back in 10 minutes, be back in 10 minutes. Never forget that you are in charge. Be firm but polite and professional at all times. And always try to guide the reporters to some other source of information. It'll make you seem more helpful and at the same time will steer the reporters away from you towards someone with more time and training. It's all right to use notes in an interview, but try to avoid reading a statement. And whatever you do, don't say, "I have a statement to make." Presidents and public affairs spokespersons make statements. You should start out by saying, "Let me just tell you what I know." A few basic rules of media relations will help keep you out of trouble. Make sure you have a plan for working with the news media during an emergency, and make sure everyone in the company knows what it is. Have a spokesperson and a backup for each shift. Be sure only one person's doing the talking, and that employees and reporters know who that person is. Everyone should know how to guide reporters to the right spokesperson. That helps reduce the risk of someone giving an off-the-cuff interview. Remind everyone that anything they say to a reporter can wind up in a news story. And don't try to push the media away. It won't work. Remember that they represent the community, and the community has a right to know what's going on. You can tell them, as long as you stick to the facts. Many companies have had extremely good results by reaching out a little and becoming more active in their media relations efforts. One technique is to contact reporters over a period of time and invite them out for an escorted visit to your facility as guests. Provide each reporter with day and night telephone numbers for someone they can contact for answers to questions about your industry or about your company in particular. The numbers may never be used, but the fact that you offered them will never be forgotten. And a final word about reporters. It should be obvious from what we've said in this program, and in what you've seen on your own, that reporters and company people come from two different camps and usually have two entirely different agendas. You'd like to see a nice story written about your company, and they're looking for a sexy, violent, controversial, emotional, and sensational story that'll appeal to a big audience. But with only the rarest of exceptions, reporters are not out to get you or your company. They're after a story, and you're just a part of that story. Don't blame them for asking the questions they do, because it's not the questions that get you into trouble. It's your answers to them. You'll find more information on the do's and don'ts of media relations in the manual that accompanies this videotape. Let us know if you need more copies. And thanks for watching.